Hello, my name is David Jalali. I am the author of the book Terrorism, the Truth, which has been published on Amazon.com for a few years. My intentions from making these video speeches is to share my knowledge that I have researched on subjects such as terrorism for over 20 years. I am an academic and a researcher, and also a student for life, learning from everybody, all the people. I graduated from Cal State Long Beach in 1981 with a bachelor, and I've studied civil engineering, business, and law. And I've been self-employed most of my life, but I've been retired for a few years, and since 2011, 2001, which the terrorist act of 9/11 happened, actually, I gradually thinking about it, become interested to spend my retirement years researching about terrorism. As a result, I wrote the book Terrorism, the Truth, among other books and other research papers. My intentions from these making these video speeches is to share my knowledge with the world, because I do believe that um, ignorance is human's number one enemy. As Martin Luther King well said, sincere ignorance and conscious stupidity is human number one enemy. Shakespeare says, ignorance is dark. And other Einstein says there are two infinites, one universe and the other is human stupidity. I am not sure about universe, Einstein. I do believe that gaining knowledge and people be aware that helps promotes peace and stability around the world. My primary goal by sharing my knowledge is to promote peace, harmony, coexistence, to make the world a better place for everybody. I personally believe that human can benefit and prosper a lot more from peace and coexistence and sharing than greed, wars, killing, stealing, racism, discrimination, occupation, invasion, and killing women and babies. And I do believe that terrorism does all those which I have said is hurting humanity today. So I thought, as a member of a society, as a citizen of the earth, uh, I have been thinking in the past what I can do to promote peace and to help make the society is a safer place for everybody, and the world is a safer place for all, and eliminate wars and killing and destruction. The thing that came to my mind is to go do research and find out what is the cause of all this destruction and killing, and how we can uh, do away with the killing and wars and destruction, and to save our resources to be spent on improving the lives of the people all over the world, not only in one location. So that's why I decided to come make these video speeches after I wrote my books and have done research. I thought, thanks to the internet and the opportunities we have to share our knowledge. And my intentions from these speeches is to promote peace and stability. And people is not intended to create violence, and people who support violence or intend violence should not be listening to my speeches because I'm opposed to violence. I believe, and the people have said, violence generates from ignorance and loss. If you want to be a winner, you have to promote peace and stability and coexistence. That's the situation when human man and woman can enjoy their life and also make the society is a better place and they improve their life and everybody would be happier. But as Einstein once more said about peace is that peace cannot be kept by force. Peace is obtained through understanding. And that is why, again, another reason that I'm trying to create that understanding by sharing my knowledge and what I've researched for over 20 years. I've been graduated from Cal State Long Beach in 1981, but I started working 2 or 3 years before that. But then later on, I went for graduate schools, study business and law. And even so, I was self-employed. I didn't really need all these degrees, but I just, out of my craving for knowledge and finding solutions to improve people's life, because I do love people. Because if I don't love people, I can't love myself, you know. So in order for us to like people, we have to like ourselves. I do like myself, and I think if there's a peace and prosperity, it's going to be good for myself too. So see, they have interests, multiple interests to promote peace and share my knowledge, and this is why I'm here. So, having said that, I would like, as I mentioned, I have researched terrorism, and I know that it causes the killing and destruction, and I'm opposed to that. So, therefore, I have identified terrorism. I'm going to define that. I'm going to define terrorism. I'm going to say what they are terrorist activities, and what's the world, who are the world biggest terrorists and danger to peace around the world. And finally, I'm going to give you a solution. I have had multiple English speaking videos in my channel. Basically, might be some overlap, but again, it does not hurt to emphasize some things because I have to, if somebody listening to each video at one time, I try to quickly go over the issues which I have discussed before in details, but each video of the past and the future may be exploring one issue further in detail. So, what today says is actually, I believe it is December 6th, if I'm not mistaken, 2020. Let me see, December. Yes, it is December, Sunday, December 6, 2020. Now, what happened is I would like to always to talk about, give you the coronavirus status, in my all videos at the beginning. Here, I would like to tell you what is going on really today in America. Today, December 6, 2020, we have 15,017 people, 349 15,017,349 cases of coronavirus. We have death 288,081 so far, and recovered 8,797,632,000. Now, this is the coronavirus status as of today in America. See, there almost 300,000 people have died, and by uh, by February, they estimated to go about 350,000, and by April, maybe about 500,000 deaths. I hope not. The virus has come out, but we don't know who is getting it when, and there is a country basically from the top is in a chaos, as you see. And America is the richest and strongest country in the world, and but it has most number of death, coronavirus, and more number of infected due to incompetency of the people who are managing this. Now, terrorism, this is kind of terrorism too, when people are panicking because they don't know if they're going to die, and there is not managed properly this situation. Unfortunately, a lot of people are dying. And today, so let me go back and I already said that I'm making these speeches for peace, and people who look for violence shouldn't listen to me. So let me define terrorism. What is terrorism? Terrorism, FBI designed as use of violence against people for political aim. See, any kind of violence against people for political aim, ordinary people, whether in the army, of course, FBI defines it in the domestic, international, and various other sources define it the same way. And then it says lawful force, unlawful force. You know, I don't know what force is lawful. Beating somebody in any case is unlawful. But anyhow, but I try to make come to a common definition from all the resources I researched terrorism. And I came to the definition that violence against people for political aim is terrorism. So based on that definition, now what activities are called terrorism? What activities cause terrorism? The activities that cause terrorism, meaning that cause panic, it kills ordinary people, and it is the intention is political aim. One of them is war, like invading a country, occupying, and trying to force topple democratically elected governments to replace them with a puppet dictator just because one government doesn't like that outside interferences in countries to make changes by either coup d'etat or by um, propaganda. They create the division, so people start fighting and killing one another. That creates panic. That creates racism, terror. So that is those activities are terrorism. Now, from now on, if I name a country who does most of these or stuff by country, every country has three parts: has government, has the people, and the geographical location or characteristics. Now, when we talk about the country, we're talking about the government because geographic characteristic of a country cannot cause any terrorism because it's a physical structure, and I believe every country's own has a beautiful physical characteristics and some harsh, some easier, but Earth is not beautiful. The human who's destroying it by terrorism. So physical is not talking about physical characteristics. We're not talking about the people because people all over the world they don't like to create panic or kill one another or steal or basically discriminate even unless it is the government who sits who either elected or imposed from outside which due to greed of certain individuals as a human as they grow get power. Abraham Lincoln has a very good saying that he says a man can handle diversity, but if you like to know the true character of a man, give him power. Man cannot handle absolute power in a sense. That he's very right. So when these politicians, the government, they are for someone maybe poor, maybe grassroots, maybe they come from people, city council, 20 people signatures they get, and they get elected. But as they grow in a society, depending on every country society, what is the power in the society? If power is money, they easily get corrupt because whoever pays them more money, they go that way. And money is in what? Money is in wars make money because you build ammunition, you sell them to fighting sections or fighting each other, create a fight, and as they kill each other, somebody here is profiting from it. Or when you occupy a country rich in natural resources, and you steal their natural resources, then they resist and they create terrorism because people eventually going to find out and it's going to be blowback. So these activities are terrorism. So these politicians, as they grow bigger, they want more support, they get more money, they get corrupt. So when we're talking, we name a country, we're talking about the government of that country, not the people and not the geographic characteristics. So now, having said that, what causes the terrorism, as we explained, the terrorist activities and the causes of terrorism or war, occupation, invasion, and all these, and the terrorists are the ones who are causing these, who are voting, for example, for to go into wars, or the people who get a gun and invade other countries and occupy those countries against the will of those people, and if they have elected government, they help topple those governments to replace them with a puppet government so they can rule that country from outside and deprive the natives of their resources so they build their own countries. And when the country is exhausted of resources, they put a dictator and leave. Now, these are terrorist activities. Now, for example, in 1953, look example, let's say Iran, that there is a conflict right now between United States and Iran. It's been for 40 years. If somebody wants to know why there is a conflict between Iran and US right now, is the US and Israel assassinate Iranian scientists and kill them, basically terrorist activities. These are like assassination is terrorism activity because you assassinate individual in the country, you create panic and use of violence, and the intention of all this is political aim is to subdue that country. See, but Iran back in 1905 had a constitutional revolution which established a constitutional monarchy in Iran. That's over 115 years ago. The Iranians had a government like England. The queen was a symbol of just monarchy, but it wouldn't govern the country. The country was governed by the parliament and the prime minister elected by the parliament. That was a democracy in Iran 115 years ago. But British, they found a uneducated, illiterate thug, and they supported him, brought him to the power. Army thug who was beat people, he was uneducated, didn't know what democracy is, and they sent him to the parliament to beat up the parliamentarian, kill a newspaperman, and basically took over the country. And for 15 years served the English agenda of free oil. And basically, they would dictate to him what to do. They even elect a prime minister, they recommend who to be, and there was no parliament. He basically parliament. He even the king, dictator king put in by English, would even elect a parliamentary member. There was no elections. And then when during World War II, United States allies invaded Iran because this puppet dictator king, Reza Khan was his name. He has built a railroad from south to north because his bosses, the English, ordered him to do that, so they can have come invade Iran and use that railroad to take arms to Russia for War II, and they occupied the country 4 or 5 years. But one of some of the people's intellectuals that this king would have sent to exile. This kind when the Allied invaded Iran during World War II, they toppled this dictator. Put his son in the power, and they occupied the country for a few years, and there was no central government with power. So a lot of these exiles, intellectuals, they ran away. They came in, and there was a parliament, there was elections, and Dr. Mossadegh was elected to the parliament. And back in 1951, he and the parliamentarian nationalized the Iranian oil, But the British who owned the oil were upset with the Americans and they revolted what they are trying to do in Venezuela right now to topple the king is to basically stop the nationalization of the oil because they were taking the oil for free. Why would they want to pay for it? Because it becomes national, then they have to it belongs to the people, and anybody who wants to have to come and pay for it. But anyhow, having my previous interviews, I've explained this extensively. Actually, the elected prime minister, there was a period of from 1950, 1940, probably 44, 45 to about 1953, there was an open political openness and a short democracy to Iran because there was no central government. The old dictator was deposed. His son was young, 22 years old. He came to power, and the country was under occupation of the, like Iraq right now, it was under occupation of the U.S. and the allies. So the government didn't really have a control over the country. So, but there was some sort of a opportunity to elect a free parliament, elect a prime minister, and but UK, this prime minister actually came to United States and plead his case with Truman, that is saying that British take our oil, but our we don't have money, we don't have hospital, we don't have road, our kids die, we don't have schools. But the British who were working in Iran, they had exclusive schools, golf courses. So all those number one amenities the workers in Europe were using, but the Iranians who owned that country and the oil, they didn't have a school, electricity, no drinking water. The people would die of disease and all of those. And the prime minister came and told Truman. Truman didn't agree to topple him up. But Churchill kept insisting until Eisenhower came to power. After when Eisenhower came to power, he helped with Churchill sending a few CIA agents to Iran with $1 million and toppled democratic elected and put the Shah back. And until 1950, 1979, from 1953 to 1979, 25 years, the country was run by a dictator who was giving 80% of the country's income, 40% to United States, 40% to Brit English, and 20% they would give him like arms to provide security in Persian Gulf. So basically, there will be security for foreigners in that region with the money of the locals, so they can steal their natural resources with security and immunity. Until the revolution happened, Khomeini was somebody who started talking against the Shah back in 1960s, early 60s, around Kennedy time. And then the revolution happened, and the country came to the power. You see, and then from then on, is enemy of United States. We have all these problems, and even right up to today, United States and Israel, they are assassinating Iranian scientists to revert back the country to a dictatorship. And these are terrorist activities. Like U.S. when occupied Iraq in 2003. Since then, at the beginning, they asked Iraqi scientists to come and either work for Israel or US, but some of them they said they want to stay in their own country, but they assassinated him. Over 500 Iraqi scientists were assassinated during 2003 to 2005. These are terrorist activities. And as Trump basically he assassinated Iranian general last January 2020, and then he comes and says, he did it, he ordered it to do. Now, this general was invited to Iraq at the invitation of the Iraqi government, try to see if they can heal the relationship between Saudi Arabia and Iran and those. But United States doesn't want those countries to unite, to have the heal the relationships. The same follows the same philosophy of the English forefathers, divide and conquer, and then provide them arms to kill each other, to promote terrorism, and to basically make profit, make money. So I think the people who buy those arms and kill each other are stupid, and that's why I'm talking. One of these days, I said that rather than spend your money buy arms to kill one another, spend that money eliminate hunger, provide school, provide health care for your people, rather than killing each other. That is my intention to give these, um, making these video speeches. And some people don't like it because they said they don't make money. But see, if we make money, excuse me, making money is not bad. You know, money is good. Money makes the world go around, and that is great. But no, at what price? You know, I don't think all the money is in the world is worth killing one person, you know. But a lot of people, unfortunately, as I said, these politicians, they become psychopaths. They don't have feelings anymore, you know, they're acting. What they say things to collect votes to come to the power and gather money and wealth, not for well-being of the people. And that is terrorism. That's supporting terrorism. You know, what happened is in these kind of terrorism, who does this currently? Which country does this most? As you know, the most wars, as we just gave you a few examples of assassinations, it's been done either by Israel and United States. But United States, Israel is basically extension of United States. You know, West Asia is one of the richest, if not the richest, land on earth as far as the natural resources go, and there have been a competition between superpowers to have influence in that region. And since World War II, United States has had basically the single-handed influence in that region, with the exception of a few minor countries, Soviets too. But Soviets have been kicked out basically. Actually, by again United States helping create Taliban in 1980s during Reagan to kick Soviets out of Afghanistan, so created that terrorist organization who committed the 9/11 Taliban, and then Al Qaeda, which is who is from basically Osama bin Laden from Saudi Arabia, and they beef with U.S. is that Saudi Arabia is under U.S. occupation, as we know, and the U.S. is basically uh, taking the money from Saudi Arabia. For example, let's talk about Saudi Arabia. I am trying to give you as many examples as for a terrorism based on definition that I gave you. So, and then we're going to identify who is the biggest terrorist, and then I'm going to give you a solution at the end. But I want to give you a couple of more examples, like Saudi Arabia, for example. Saudi Arabia, women cannot drive, they cannot vote, and there is a absolute monarchy. I mean, there is a king who anybody opposes will cut their head, like ISIS. Actually, ISIS or ISIS that was created by United States, you know, according to Trump, according to Hillary Clinton, according to Wesley Clark, all these names that I mentioned, you do a search on Google or any other search engine you use, and use, for example, terrorism, ISIS, you know, Wesley Clark on ISIS, for example, Clinton on ISIS or Taliban, or Trump on ISIS. And then you get their speeches and listen to them. See, all confess that they created ISIS. And they armed them. And then ISIS follows the same ideology as Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, actually back in early 1900, World War One, British helped the Saudis come to the power by giving arming them against the various factions in Saudi Arabia to make them rule the country, a family. And then this family is actually Ben Salman is um, is the king of Saudi Arabia right now. As you know, Khashoggi, Khashoggi, Khashoggi was a journalist working for Washington Post. You probably all know that Saudi Arabia, this king ordered, sent 11 people, invited, they asked, he wanted to get his passport to get married with his fiancée. They asked me to go to the embassy in Ankara to get his passport. When he went in there, they attacked him, 11 people, and they killed him, butchered him, and cut him in pieces and buried him around the town. And the Turkish investigators, they even have audio, video. CIA investigated, and CIA said the same thing. And even CIA said the order came from the king, MBS, Mohammed ibn Salman. It means Muhammad bin Salman. That is, he ordered it. And then Trump comes and says that it was the only thing they asked him, do you know that the king of Saudi Arabia ordered butchering the journalists? Trump replied that that was done very sloppy. See, he didn't say that they shouldn't have been done, or he didn't actually condone it. So basically, he says he knew was it's just criticized the way it was done was sloppy, so he got caught. In a sense. Because Trump is a terrorist too. He's a mafia. He's like a gangster, but he's not a good one. He's too stupid. He's acting, but he's the most dangerous, I would say, person to the United States is Trump, is the president. You see, when the people don't have the knowledge, when the people decide based on emotions than thinking, they become enemy of their own country by their choices. People look at 17 million Americans voted for Trump, 80 million for Biden. Not that Biden is not much different. Biden is a politician, but Biden is more careful in what is that. The Trump is not a politician. He's a terrorist, but he's a stupid one too. He's a criminal, but he's a stupid criminal. Meaning that he supports criminal, he supports terrorism. But Biden has more, is a little bit politician. He supports probably the same things in a sense because it is in the nature of United States government. There is a very old saying, little story that this turtle and this scorpion wanted to go across a river. And the scorpion told the turtle, let me get on your back and you take me to the other side of the river. The turtle says, if I do that, you will sting me, you kill me. He says, no, why would I do that? Yeah, I'm going to die myself. So I won't do that. The turtle starts for saying, yeah, he has a logic. He says, if he stings me in the middle of the river, I'm going to sing, he's going to sing, he's going to die. So let me give him, he agrees and puts him on his back. The turtle puts his head in and starts swimming, but he has to take his head out sometime and breathe or see where he's going. So the turtle, when he takes his head out in the middle of the river, the scorpion stings him. He says, "You stupid! Why did you sting me? Now we're both gonna die." He says, "Yeah, I didn't want to sting you, but that's in my nature. I can't help it. So the terrorists, yeah, you see, because see, they have by the time they get higher up to become a politician or a president or a vice president or a senator, greed goes into their nature. Terrorism goes into nature because they have to support terrorism in order to get vote. And how people do not really support terrorism. I told you, majority of people. But if they are ignorant, they think they support. They believe what the politicians tell them, and they lie to them, and they vote. And that's why it's same thing. The people who vote for Trump. Why do you think so many Americans are so ignorant to vote for somebody that is terrorism and doesn't give a damn about anybody except himself? This guy is a psychopath if you analyze it. It's because they decide on their emotions. They hate the same people that Trump hates. Now, Trump has a different reason for hating those people because they're obstacle to him making more money, more power, or his base make more money. Just people around him, a few that they lend each other money. I was on the news. I heard that he got bribed to pardon some people. The people he pardoned, a bunch of billionaires like him who committed crime, but they bribed him and he pardons them. He tried to pardon as many as he can. Now, you see that this is a gangster running this country. It's not a government that cares for people. American people, I believe they deserve better than that. I've been grown up about American people. I think they are very good people and they're very good people and they are very hardworking. They want to have a better life. But in a country which is the richest country in the world, America, The government has a military budget of almost $750 billion, plus another 200, $250 billion supplementals, about $1 trillion a year has a military budget directly or indirectly to build bigger bombs. In just last 2 or 3 years, Trump has spent almost $76 billion to big to improve the atomic bombs. United States has over 5,000 bombs, atomic bombs. And why do they need these bigger bombs? One of them is because it create some jobs, but what kind of job? Jobs to promote destruction and terrorism. And the other, then they want to use this to extort other countries. You see, the country runs like a mafia. Now, if this money the other, I'm going to give you a solution at the end. But if, for example, if this money is spent on medical research, on provide unemployment, in building the infrastructure of the country, that would benefit Americans a lot more than making bigger bombs to destroy other countries. Because see, you only need force if you are a minority trying to rule the majority. People who are rich, the richer they are, the more force they need to protect themselves, because that means the more people they screwed to get up there. I mean, look at how many Trump, look at the history of Trump, for example, another example. Trump, he has filed 6 bankruptcies. You know what a bankruptcy means? Bankruptcy means you people owe you money. You file bankruptcy not to pay him. So it means you screw people. But he's a billionaire still. How could somebody file bankruptcy and be a billionaire? Because the system is corrupt. The thing, and the people who vote for him, they are stupid in a sense, I think, or they're ignorant. Because if the guy is a crook, he makes his fortune by screwing other people. Now, do you expect him to care for you? There is an old saying that says there is no honor among thieves, you know, and he's a thief because he seeks bankruptcy, because he built these hotels, and when contractors came to get paid, he filed bankruptcy, and then he negotiated with them, didn't pay the money hard. He basically made his fortune by stealing the hard, the money that people earn, Americans earn by working hard, working the butt off to earn that money. But he didn't pay them. He kept it for himself by filing bankruptcy, using the law to his own advantage. You know, and people, 70 people, means that is very scary how people can be so ignorant. And why they are so ignorant in America or in the Western world, people like that? Because the Hollywood, the movie, the entertainment, what entertainment is, they entertain you. Like if you go to Vegas to get entertained, they give you free alcohol, free drinks. Why do you think when they give you free drinks when you gamble and you're sitting there? Because they give you rope to hang yourself for free. They give you alcohol, you drink alcohol, you get drunk, you don't know, you cannot play blackjack, cannot count the numbers, and you don't know that you're making mistake. So you lose your rear end and you walk out of there and you're happy that you went for a vacation. What kind of vacation is that? You go broke, and then you next day you wake up, you either want to suicide or kill yourself or come back exhausted. Alcohol, there's a hole in your um, stomach, because the alcohol, you keep drinking alcohol and stuff, get it, you may even get disease or lose your money, and then with a hangover, your head wants to blow up, and you come back. What kind of vacation is that? You know, but that's how Trump, that's how the system makes the money. And when they advertise to people, this is a good, because you keep repeating the lie in the newspaper, media. You watch the world news here, for example. You want to watch, if you want really news, you have to go search on the internet, Google the various sources to get real news, what's going on. Otherwise, you watch mainstream media, the channels, what do they show you? They show you that there is a dog fell into the well or down a ditch, and there's a helicopter. There's anyone trying to pull the dog out. For that's 30 minutes news. You spend 5 minutes talking about this, and the other 5 minutes that some actress, some actor, they got divorced and stuff. And then at the same time, there are hundreds of thousands of people are dying in Yemen with the weapons provided by United States and United pilots, and with another dictatorship, Saudi Arabia gives them get buys $100 billion a year ammunition. Go kill Yemenis, who are the poorest people on the face of the earth. just because they want to elect their own government. The United States doesn't want any country in the Middle East has a democratic government, because if they have a democratic government, they do not allow the government, the country, to be occupied by a foreign. That's first thing you do. Like, see, Germany is occupied right now. Russia is occupied. U.S. has 23 military bases in Germany. You has multiple bases in Japan. So those countries who are under occupation, they are not really free. They cannot make decisions, the government, to the benefit of their own people. How would you, any American here would like Russia to have a military base in middle of America, someplace, a few of them? No, because you want to be free. Same with me. I think that is what is good for the goose is good for the gander. You know, and if we, rather than try to support occupation of countries, like killing Yemenis, die, as I said, by 100,000, or Syrians, 500,000 Syrians die. You don't hear much on the news here. Now, unless the terrorists who supported by Saudi Arabia, armed by United States, like ISIS in Syria, for example, they are they all joined together. They call them now Syrian Free Army because they changed the name because there was ISIS started killing some Westerners. People found out that U.S. and basically Saudi Arabia and France and England, they created ISIS, so they took him to change their name to Syrian Free Army. And now, if they use gas against the Syrian people, and then the media come and says the Syrian government used gas against his own people. Why would the government use the gas against his people? He needs, if there is no people, there won't be no government. So it won't kill the people who give you power. So see what I'm saying? The people who live someplace, they don't like to destroy their own home. They bomb from outside to them, and they blame the government for destroying the country because their government resists occupation, resists invasion. See, these whoever causes these all of these issues, and that is the world biggest terrorist. Whoever causes more wars, supports ISIS, Al Qaeda, creates Al Qaeda, supports, creates Taliban, creates, invades, occupied Saudi Arabia, or bombs Syria or Yemen, or occupies other countries, like commit support a coup d'etat to topple democratic elected government. If you study those, you do a little bit of research on these issues, which country commits more coup d'etat, which country committed more war, started more war since World War II, which country has occupied other country. United States has over 700, almost 800 military bases in over 150 countries. That's occupation. So those people, now you should ask the citizens of those countries to vote whether the country wants to, whether they want their country to be occupied by foreign forces. Of course, they say no. But United States toppled those governments. None of those governments hardly are elected. They're all basically imposed by United States through a coup d'etat from outside. The United States does not allow fair and free elections in any country, basically in West Asia, because the partners of United States, they're all dictators like Saudi Arabia, Jordan, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain. They bring United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. Both of them, each population is less than 1 million for each country. Most of them are foreigners, workers in there. They bring those two countries. Now, I ask the government of the United States whether Bahrain government was elected by his people. No, the people in Bahrain, they demonstrated to have elections. They were machine gunned. Saudi Arabia sending troops and killed all of them to keep the puppet dictator in. Emirates the same way. There has never been any election in Emirates. Emirates, they came to power. British brought them in power in 1971 through a coup d'etat. Actually, they occupied those regions south of Persian Gulf. When British went out, they put this puppet dictator in power, and now they're giving them arm and support to stay in there. And they bring them make Solvits, make a they call them peace with Israel, and then they say, "Oh, look at we are making peace," but these people are not even representing their own people. Now there are riots, there are demonstrations in their countries against this deal, but they don't. The news here don't show it. Did I talk about some actress or some actor or some dog in a ditch or something? People dying all over the world with the United States military equipment and intervention and supported dictators. But news doesn't say anything because they like to keep people ignorant. If people know the truth, if people they have to do research and study. But here, the entertainment, it's just like giving them that alcohol that's given to you in Las Vegas on a gambling table. So you lose your mind and lose your money. This entertainment, drugs, alcohol, dance, these shows, they try to distract people and show them, giving them lie because movie, Hollywood is a big lie, as you know. So by telling lie to people, distract the people's mind from knowing the truth. And that's why people support, vote for somebody like Trump, vote for a criminal to come to the power, who all thinks doesn't give a shit about people. All he cares about is making more profit for himself or people around him at the expense of the despair and death of ordinary Americans. But I think if we talk about Americans and tell them know what the truth, they be careful who they vote for, and then we have peace rather than war. Now, a lot of people may say, who gives a damn, for example, on people in West Asia, though, as long as we have oil cheap, we have everything available, economy is good, we don't give a damn for them. Okay, that's one way to look at it. But see, the thing is, look, if you read the history, Truman has a good saying. He says, if you want to know the future, read the history. If you look at the history, you see that Romans were they were empire, but when they started atrocities, they did expanded and become more. They started losing their power. And the Persian Empire was the first and biggest and longest empire in the world, and that was extended from North China all the way to North Africa and the Mediterranean and Russia today, all the way to Red Sea, to where Yemen is, that area was basically Persian Empire, all these and biggest, and that was the longest and the biggest empire. And they lost the same way too when the atrocities happened, wars. So nothing, the world corrects itself, the nature. The world turns, as time goes on. And as the atrocity now, United States has been spending like $8 trillion in the West Asia, and United States right now owes over $26 trillion. The country's debt is like over 95, 96% of GDP. You see, the country basically, America is almost broke, as a matter of fact. Used to be the biggest economy, still is, but China has surpassed them already. Right now, we see in China, you don't hear about much COVID-19. They all do become big manufacturers, China. They're making money manufacturing. What US is trying to, there are about 2,000 people die a day in the United States. But in China, how many die? China has 1.5 billion population. United States has only 350 million population. And the 2000 in Africa has 1.5 billion people. There are about like 40,000 people died in Africa. I mean, there are a few people, a lot less than United States. And China is a lot less, 4,000, 5,000 people, even if they lie. But you can see, I mean, China is functioning. They're making profit, their economy growing and positive, which US economy is actually shrinking. And, all of these is because of United States support of terrorism. Now, who is the world biggest? You see, United States, the biggest, these wars have been involved, all these wars than any other country in the world support dictators, allies. I just mentioned a few of them: Saudi Arabia, UAE, Emirates, Jordan, Egypt. Had a democratic elected government. Egypt had 2000, was it 2011, 12, and 2000. A few years ago, the guy who got elected, they throw him in the jail. He got like more than 60, 70% vote in Egypt. And they killed him, and they could help put it to CIA, brought the general and his CC, and he's ruling with the iron fist. Now, these countries eventually, as US is losing money and getting smaller, these countries, people are going to wake up. And like Iran, who did the revolution in 79, and kick US out. And basically, there is this animosity right now. They're trying to hold Iran back and maybe change the government, put another puppet dictator in there. But this time is different. It's not going to happen because the Iranians right now are more educated people know, and they're woken up. They won't give in. They have been sanctioned. Pompeo, it was a couple of years ago, he came, he says, if Iranians want to eat, they have to basically surrender to us, give away their nuclear technology, all of that. But they didn't 3 years ago. It's been 3 years. Iranian didn't, and their economy actually, they're because they produce everything inside, they're managing, but they didn't surrender. And the nuclear things are advancing. So the United States start with Israel start assassinating their general to to pull him into a war before Trump leaves. Trump is going to leave a couple of more months. So his strategy right now is to by assassinating the senators, and the scientists, and the generals in Iran, the elite. They're trying to help him do a miscalculation attack or maybe make an attack. But I think Iranians, if you study every culture, Iranians are chess players. Americans, I mean, Trump is a poker player right now. Poker, is bluff mostly, a lot of it. But chess is a game of strategy, So Iran has been an empire for over, I mean, thousands of years ago before US existed. US is in power. It's been a country 240 years. It's been created 500 years, by occupation and ethnic cleansing of the natives, Indians. So it came in by atrocity. And it still wants to gain power by atrocity, which is basically terrorism. So, but the Iranians, no, they have been there for thousands of years. The history of the people living in that region, Iran, goes to back 150,000 years back. So they have that, and they've never been under occupation, excuse me, under occupation for very long. So their strategy is and they're going to resist, but as they resist, they're helping the cells in different countries like Hezbollah in Lebanon, like Houthis in Yemen, like Iraqis to get themselves to rid themselves off of the occupation of U.S. occupation, off of terrorism, off of dictators which are supported by United States and to put in to basically control that region. So these are all terrorist activities. But Iran is basically fighting that. The thing is, America calls Iran a terrorist nation. Trump. But the terrorists, we define terrorism as use of violence for political aim. Now, a country which goes from this side of the world to that side of the world next to Iran, for example, occupies Iraq, Afghanistan, supports dictator in Emirates, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Jordan, Egypt. Now, is that a terrorist or the country who is lived there for 150,000 years and they are defending their homeland against occupation and invasion, and they are helping the people who have been under their allies for hundreds, thousands of years, like people in Lebanon, Iran. They were part of a Persian Empire. So if they, back in then, they are relatives in a sense. So they're helping the people who don't want their country to be occupied. But that is not terrorism. The self-defense is a right for everybody. So people are going to realize that you can only keep people under fooling for some of the time, but you cannot fool all the people all the time. But once the people find out, they're going to become resilient in that region like Iranians. And they're going to resist US. Either it's going to be third world war because they have nukes too. Everybody's going to die. Or if they want to leave US, going to either leave peacefully and then come back to US or leave like Vietnam. They were hanging from helicopters when they were these are terrorist activities. And United States, based on what I said, because committing more crimes, and then through either his proxies like Israel or Saudi Arabia or Emirates or through Egypt or Jordan, through his proxies, is supporting terrorism. Because see, Israel, how was Israel created? Israel basically, they back in 19 in the World War One, English occupied that region and then brought some Jews from around the world gradually and put in there, and also There were some living there. There are probably Jewish people, Christian, Muslims lived in Palestine, but there was no wars against them. They could basically have let them elect their own government, have a government there then we wouldn't have any of these killings of terrorism in the Middle East. But rather than that, they support one religion based on Judaism. And whoever Jewish can go to Israel, get a free land, and get government money, and that is racism because that's against the laws of United States. You're not supposed to discriminate between people based on religion. But the United States and the allies, they do that outside United States. And the people who were natives living in Palestine, whether Muslim, Christian, or whatever religion, or atheist, or whatever, they were forced to move out, be replaced by Jews, because that way they can control the vast oil resources of the West Asia. And Israel has been created by terrorism, the same way killing the tops of the people who oppose them. And now it's Israel assassinating, invading the countries around it, the same way the U.S. is. So basically, it's the same thing as U.S. is, and then killing, invading the countries, occupying their lands, and they wanted to go forward, but the Iranian revolution held them back. Right now, Israel is building walls around it to survive. Before the Iranian revolution, Israel was expanding. After the revolution, Israel was kicked out of Lebanon and Syria and some areas, and now it got to the point that it got is building walls around it. You see how that goes? So it means that when Pompeo says the West is winning, what is the West winning? I want to ask him. The West is look at the power of United States. 30, 40 years ago, U.S. was more powerful in the world or now? Of course, 34 is Reagan during 70s, 80s, United States was very powerful. But right now, look at him. He's trying to protect itself and in the doesn't have a safe place in the West Asia. Now, Israel the same way. They may have an upper hand on technology, on the weapons, but weapons, the other people get it too, in a sense. And there are a lot more. There are 2 billion Muslims who've been, the countries have been occupied by United States or Israel. Look at Iraq, Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, Emirates, Bahrain, Jordan, Egypt. These are all basically majority Muslim countries, but they are occupied by United States either or by Israel, if it's a majority Christian, and then they call them terrorists, because they defend their homeland. See, this is why 70 million people are so ignorant they vote for Trump, because the lies that have been told over and over, they think it through. They think that if United States gets out of Saudi Arabia and Emirates, Bahrain, and let them elect their own government and stop bombing Yemen and stop supporting Israel, then Americans' life would be in danger. No, Americans would be much safer that way because there are going to be less enemies created to one kill them. When U.S. occupation of all these countries and bombing Yemen and supporting Israel, killing those, okay, a lot of people they see where the support and weapon is come from United States. They become our enemies, United States enemies, and our life we live in America will be unsafe. Would be the safety would come down because by supporting dictators and occupation and invasion, then we support terrorism. America supports terrorism government, American government, and then creates more enemies of the population, the mass population. Because once you support a puppet dictator, you're supporting a minority to stay in power at the price of the majority. But majority is the one who is going to eventually win, either through democracy. If not, when they realize they get educated, they get waiting for opportunity, they revolt like Iran, which did 3 times. You see Arab Spring, this happened. But when this happens, they come to power, then they become U.S. enemy, and then become more danger to U.S. enemy. Right now, it promotes terrorism because once you put puppet dictator in power, they have to terrorism activities increase. You see now. What is the solution to all of this? Now we explained that because those people in those region in the occupied region, West Asia, basically, since Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, those people who are fighting the foreigners who have occupied their home country, they're fighting for their home, for their family. They're not fighting for money. A lot of people go bomb Yemen or Syria, and this ISIS created by Saudi Arabia, and in Lebanon they go kill these people. These people are mercenaries. They're fighting for money. What do you want the money for if you are dead? If the people who fight for money because they want to have their money, go enjoy their life. But if they're dead, they're not going to be enjoying their life. What do they want money for? But those people who are defending their countries in the Taliban, for example, in Afghanistan, or people in Saudi Arabia, in Yemen, Bahrain, in Iran, in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, those people like Hezbollah and stuff, those people are fighting for their homeland, for their family, for their dignity. So those people, if they die to become heroes fighting for the homeland. These mercenaries or US soldiers, they go into those countries and kill them. They're fighting for money, because if you ask US military personnel, 99% of them, they say they come to military because they're poor, they need money. But are soldiers really willing to die for money? Who is? I don't know anybody who is willing to die for money. I wouldn't even get kidding for money. Why do I want money for if I'm dead? See, I want money if I'm alive to enjoy it. So when it comes to the point of their life is in danger, they're going to leave. So eventually means that this strategy that you pay people to go into the countries and occupy and kill them, this strategy is a matter of time to fail. Now, if we wait too long and kill a lot of them before it fails, you create much more enemies, the reason to want a revenge, and that makes us unsafe. Now I give you a solution. The solution is democracy. Not democracy. I was reading a Twitter from Kelly Carafe, I guess U.S. Representative to United Nations. He was saying that we don't. The election in Venezuela is a sham. Maduro, because what is your business to what election? Your own allies don't even have election. Exercise of an election, you may not be acceptable to you, the candidate who gets elected, but that reflects the will of the people. Now, if people make a mistake, they should be given a chance. Democracy is like a kid that is born, a new democracy. People make mistakes. They elect somebody. If it doesn't do good for the country, they have a choice after like 4 years or whatever time, 4 years or 8 years, when the guy comes to be, they has to be reelected. They won't vote for him. They vote for somebody else. That way, the country would go and they become friends of the United States for life with no animosity. And a lot of Americans would benefit more, because Americans would be safer, would be richer, and their money that is needs to be spent to improve their lives, American lives, is not spent to commit coup d'etat in Venezuela, in Iran, in other places. The billions of dollars of US is spent propaganda to beef up dictators around the world, or building bigger bombs to blow up the places. What benefit does it do to the American people? I am a researcher. I have studied. I've been in university all of my life, almost one leg and one leg, trying to earn a living. I've never been a day unemployment in America. I have not even collected 1 cent of unemployment, 1 cent of government support, but I have written paychecks all of my life. I've been feeding hundreds of Americans with a paycheck for all of my life, different time, directly or indirectly, my actions. So I like this country. I think it's a safe place. It's the biggest country in the world. It's the strongest. It's the most beautiful country. But the government of United States, by its actions of supporting terrorism, is destroying what Americans have had for many years. As you all Americans see, that America right now, if you ask your parents, their life better now or was 30, 40 years ago, it was better. See, as we grow, as time goes on, the life in America becomes harder. It is more expensive. There are more poor. There are more crime. In America, I was reading, I checked various sources, about like 70, 77 people. This is a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. Americans get killed as a result of gun accident, gun-related death. 70, 77 people a day, like 20, 24, 25,000 almost a year die because of gun-related incident. Right now is more, like three of them a day. This is 3 years old data, couple of years old data. Three of them a day killed by the police that 3 years ago. Right now is more, because you see all these riots and all this going on. But why do the people riot? Because not everybody is a thief. Why the crime goes up? People are not born as a thief. The society makes them thieves. Because see, the society when neglects them, you go to some minority neighborhoods, they are poor, they don't have, their wife is sick, the kid is sick, they're dying, they either have to go rob a place, that's at the last option. I do believe criminals are stupid, therefore stupidity is a crime. I agree, that's stupid. But some people, they get to a point that they don't have any other choice. I'm not saying crime or stealing is good, but if the society, if the government, rather than spending $1 trillion a year and being $26 trillion in debt of the money or taxpayers' money to support a racist government like Israel, one religion government, to create enemies for America, or support Saudi Arabia and dictators, or invade Iraq and Afghanistan, blow up people around the world. If that money comes to US and be spent on Americans here, every American would benefit from it. Their life would be better. We're going to have more schools, better schools, more teachers, better teachers, and university up to 4 years college degree. People can go get a degree and go to work. Right now, if you go to college, get a degree. I worked in 7-Eleven at nights when I was going to college back in 70s, late 70s. And during 7-Eleven, I was working from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. 8 a.m. I would go to library, Callister language to study chemistry. I remember was at 12. Go get a hamburger at 12, or go to library, put the chairs next to each other, take a couple hours a nap, and then get up and study 6:30, 9:30 again class that night. And then after that, go to work 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. to work at 7-Eleven to be able to go to university, get a degree, 4-year degree in 4 years. And then get a job. But whenever I would go for a job, I was told that I went a couple of places. One guy told me back then in 1980, the guy would told me I'd rather hire an American. I would say, what's the difference? He says, have you been here longer than blacks? I said, no. He says, I don't think they are American. See, racism in the society, I have experienced it firsthand. It's there. And I told him, I shaked it down. I said, you know what, my friend? I'm going to go open my own business and I'm going to hire American. I'm going to hire your kid. But I don't discriminate based on the race or where they are from or what. And that way, I sleep better at night. I feel better. And so the racism in this country, when you go spend taxpayers' money of this country to support one religion government like Israel, who kills and make refugee out of the natives, women and kids, babies, with American bombs and ammunition that's made by taxpayers' money to occupy other nations. And America soldiers go invade a country, rape women, get drunk, and destroy things. That is not going to make any enemies for America. The least they're going to do is going to make everybody hate Americans, make enemies for America. And then not only you wasting American valuable resources such as tax money to destroy the world and create enemies for Americans, the tax money that should be used on Americans so we won't have 300,000 deaths. If Trump had spent this money in healthcare, we had PPEs in time, we had researchers in place, if Trump hadn't pulled out the American doctors from World Health Organization, United Nations, those American doctors were still there, then they could get more information on this virus. We could have had a vaccine much faster. We could have saved some American lives. You see what I'm saying? So the number one enemy of Americans is United States government. Is the system that gets tax money from the people and puts it into building more and bigger bombs to promote terrorism, to support terrorism around the world, invade countries, support racism, like, discrimination, like Saudi Arabia, doesn't let women drive, that kind of discrimination, or in the one in Israel, which, they kill the locals, natives, because they don't have the same religion and they bring it from outside based on Judaism, which I don't think they're Jews either, because in Judaism says you gotta love your neighbor as you love yourself. Now you're telling me Israel loves his neighbors? So they're not Jews. They're just using this to fool the people. The same people who vote for Trump because they are ignorant, the same people support Israel because they're ignorant, because they're lied to. or is a minority benefits from them. They use the ignorance from majority ignorance to benefit the minority that trying to make money. So see, if the solution is for America to stop supporting these racist governments like Emirates, UAE, or say, Israel or Saudi Arabia, to stop spending American taxpayers' money making bigger bombs to blow different places to create more wars and support dictators and racism, and then bring that money and put it into research for healthcare, education, infrastructure of America. Because our infrastructure were built back in 1950s. A lot of these roads and bridges, a lot of them are decayed or falling apart. You see, there have been accidents during winter. Every part of the country, one bridge fell apart because they're not maintained. Because the money that should be spent on this country is being spent on supporting terrorism. So that is my see. That's why, as I said again, my talks, my speeches, what I say is not for people who are looking for violence, because my intention is to create peace or people who want peace. Peace comes with knowledge. When you have knowledge, you make better choices. The choices that are going to benefit you, not the choices that are going to destroy your life and create more enemies for you. See, I'm in the same boat as you are, like everybody else is. I want to have a more peaceful. If somebody dies any place around the world, any place with American arms, that means I have created, our government has created more enemies for us. That means that my tax money or your tax money that you paid has been used to kill people around the world to make enemies for us. It didn't help us. It wasn't used. Our tax money should be allocated by the Congress for the benefit of American people. How is supporting a dictator in Saudi Arabia or a racist in Israel to kill people around them on the natives and bomb Yemenis or Syrians, or supporting ISIS or giving them arms, American arms, to kill 500,000 people in Syria, is helping Americans, is providing security for them, is making their life better? Is it? I don't think so. I think the money, the solution to all the world terrorism is for not the war, is not the war, is not supporting dictatorship, is not supporting racism, is not occupation, invasion, is on the contrary. It is supporting people to elect their own government, supporting true democracy. Now, if somebody, if Venezuela, for example, they elect Maduro, so that's elect Venezuelans' business. That's not U.S. business. U.S. try to say, okay, we respect your choice, and we deal with the government, talk to them, see how we can find common ground and negotiate. Now, and then that way you make friends. In order to make friends, you have to give out candies. You can give out bullets and bombs and kill people and massacre and promote terrorism to make friends. You make enemies. And when the enemies become more than us, they get the same hands on the same technology, then they start killing us. And that's too late. So I'm trying to prevent that. I'm trying to promote peace. I hope, you listen to everything and do research, please, on everything I said. And let me know if I'm wrong any part. Let me know how it benefits United States to support a dictator in Saudi Arabia who cuts tens of people a day, chops up their heads just because they say we have to have democracy and vote. This Khashoggi journalist, Washington Post journalist that Ben Salman ordered in his embassy to chop him up in pieces and bury him around town. What do you think he said that the king didn't like? A friend, Trump's friend. Khashoggi had said that I wish we had elections in Saudi Arabia like we do in United States, like you do in United States. He just wished for voting in Saudi Arabia, but they chopped him up, and that is Trump's best friend. So the people who vote for Trump, you're voting for Saudi Arabia. You're voting for the racists who, based on one region, which is even against United States Constitution, that you have voted for or you have sown to. You're voting for those because, as Eisenhower well said, you are who you associate with. Trump's best friend, who is Trump's best friend? Look at him. Netanyahu, a racist. There is no place in the world that Netanyahu is not a racist. He's not criminal. Or and a terrorist. Or Ben Salman, who chops head just because one of his citizens of his country wished for elections. Or is bombing Yemenis because Yemenis won election. You see, you're voting for that. You're voting for terrorism. You're voting for criminal. You're voting for destruction. That's and why people are so become so ignorant because they decide emotionally. They don't do research. And money is now you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have security and you have more enemies and more that you can travel in place and you don't have security, all the money in the world is not going to worth it. You better have just a simple life, a little bit of money, but have security and peace. But this greed from the elite of this country, United States government, some people, I'm not saying all of them, but there's some of them, probably majority, they make the decision because of money they're selling themselves. They sold themselves to money to make money. They make money at the price of even your head, your people, the price of Americans' life. Because look at the Americans going to the Afghanistan, Iraq soldiers. They come back crippled, some of them. Like hundreds of thousands of we have crippled people in Vietnam. 50,000 Americans died. In Iraq and Afghanistan, more than tens of thousands of Americans have died. Tens of thousands are crippled and their life is ruined. Why? So some stocks of Pompeo in the military industrial complex or stocks in the investments in arm production can go up. He can make more money. He can have his parties, luxury parties. That's what they do. They use ordinary Americans to get killed, to go fight, so they can make money. And they tell them you're defending your country. My friend, the country of America borders to the south is Mexico, north is Canada, east is Atlantic Ocean, and west is Pacific Ocean. Anybody who wants to attack America, I volunteer to be the first one to go at the border and fight them defending America. This is America, I believe in. And I believe in America that says justice for all, not just for some people depending on their religion or the color of skin. The people who go outside these borders, invade Iraq, Afghanistan, they are not freedom fighters. They are terrorists. The freedom fighters are the ones who are defending their homeland. If somebody, as I said, somebody invades another country, invasion that country is for political aim, therefore defined by FBI as terrorism. Then the soldiers who invade those countries and kill those people and bomb them, they are terrorists based on definition of FBI. I'm not making that. I'm just give you definition and show you who commit those acts and who is terrorist. But the people who defend America inside America, they are freedom fighters. They are heroes. The same way with any other country. America has 5,000 nuclear bombs every year. It spends just, as I said, $176 billion to improve them. And you worry about Iran having one or two atomic bombs. They say they don't want it. They don't have it here. This is excuse. This is excuse to take over some countries, to steal the natural resources, to enrich a handful of people, elite, at the expense of the American life and those people life in those countries killing people for money. That's basically this. So these are terrorists, real terrorists. Those people that they label as terrorists, like in Saudi Arabia, in Afghanistan, in the West Asia, any country in West Asia, those people are fighting for their home, their land, their families. If somebody defends his family and his home, he's not terrorist. FBI says if somebody invades or hurt other people for political aim, is terrorist. Means people who invade these countries from outside, they invade for political aim to change the government. Those are terrorists. See, the real meaning of terrorist, that's what it is. So I hope people make better choices. We don't want somebody who's enemy of the country. But it's very hard, I know, but we do the best we can. I just thought, I hope, enlighten some people. Some people listen to this, tell me what part I'm wrong so I can learn from you. Best wishes to you guys. Sorry to talk too much, but have a beautiful, happy holidays coming up and stay safe from coronavirus. Please wear mask and 6 feet distance. Do not go out if you don't have to and try to be safe and keep everybody else safe. We are only free to the point that we do not hurt other people. And we are free to make the world a safer place. Thank you, and see you next time.